Hello, it's that time of month again when I'm looking at some of the giving records from my congregation. I try to do this about once a month to see what trends are emerging. This is one helpful way, but what I've learned over the years is that stewardship is about money, but it's not only about money. In fact, one of the important learnings in our congregation was how to move towards year-round stewardship. I use that term, and some people ask, what does that mean? Asking for money 12 times a year? No. What it means is, what are the aspects that help us to grow stewards in our congregation? There are 8 specific areas that we've learned to focus on. The first of those has to do with assessing where we are. So each year we take a look at what we've done over the last 3 years, and we've tried to use some surveys to establish a baseline and find where there's some changes. And are those changes moving in the direction that we want to go? And when I say we want to go, it connects to the second point that we look at, and that is that we have a vision for what we want to do in stewardship. Now, I like the vision that Reverend Charles Lane identified in his book, Ask, Thank, Tell. On page 11, he says, stewardship committees and congregations are about helping others grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ through the use of the time, talent, and resources that God has entrusted to them. I think that is a helpful explanation that really helps to broaden and deepen our understanding of what we are and who we are as steward leaders. With that vision, we're able to shape some other key areas. One of those is communication. And a key area that we focus on is the power of story. Story has a direct impact on the life of people in the congregation. You probably hear many stories from the pulpit in the course of a year, but we find the stories that come from the hearts of people in our congregation help to teach, help to inspire, help to inform, help to invite people to grow in their giving of time, talents, and resources. But telling the story or sharing stories is only part of it, because it takes some education. It means, what are the key pieces that we want people to know? What are the key principles that we want to teach? One of the places that we start with is with new members. These are people who are coming into the congregation and they may not quite be sure what this is about or what the expectations are. I have participated in many new member orientations, and one of the key questions I ask is, how many of you have joined this congregation because of our stewardship ministry? Now, as you might expect, some people might laugh in response to that question, but it really raises the fact, where is stewardship in the life of our congregation? When I begin to lift up each of the worship services that we have, or the courses or classes that we have, or when I talk about how we have choirs, or the service work that we do in the community, that is all about our stewardship. That's how our community of faith uses our gifts to do God's work. And we want to invite, encourage new members to join in and do the same. Now, we also, when we look at this, talk about what are the gifts that we have. What are the gifts that God has given us to do ministry? And one of the most helpful approaches we found there is to engage in asset-based thinking and planning, looking at what the assets are that God has given us. This has helped us to shape some new ministries, and it's helped to build the confidence of people in our congregation, because we see the gifts that we have and what we can do with those gifts together. Now, once we know what those gifts are, we then begin to think about how will we use or how will we share them. Some of those gifts are time and talent. Yes, some of them are resources, including financial resources. So we talk about having an annual response. About 2/3 of our 9,000 plus ELCA congregations have an annual response each year, asking members to make a specific financial commitment. And congregations that ask for that have a higher level of giving. But it's not only about that commitment, because there are other special opportunities for giving. Fundraising efforts that come up through the year. Maybe it's for a building, maybe it's for repairs, maybe it's for a trip for a youth to go somewhere. Those are all special giving opportunities. The third part of our giving is how we do planned giving. This is a year-round focus in helping people to think about how will they use the assets, particularly the financial assets, some of them physical, that God has blessed them with. We encourage each congregation to have an endowment, to think about what is the ministries that we can make possible, and to use that endowment as God has guided you. Now, when we put all these pieces together, what we begin to see is it's about growing stewards. What we're trying to do is grow well-formed stewards in our congregation, because well-formed stewards are also good disciples. There's two key traits we find there. One is people who are grateful. People who are thankful for what they have been given tend to be people who live happier lives. And people who are generous. People who tend to live happier lives. We find that if our congregation is thankful and generous, we can grow good stewards, we can do year-round stewardship, and we can be a stronger congregation to do God's work.